Good morning, Professor Laird here. It's Friday morning, April 17th. I've finished my coffee. What I wanted to do was just spend a few minutes talking about the paper. Specifically, what I wanted to talk about is we're going to look at the syllabus and the directions as far as what's required for the paper. Then I want to talk about the guide to writing your paper, which I've alluded to several times already. And then I want to talk a little bit about the sample bibliography, which you can use as a go-by for your reference sheet. So let's go ahead and get right on into that. Let's look at the syllabus first of all. The syllabus for all the classes are pretty much the same. So what you want to do is follow instructions. 12-point font, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins, double spaced for your paper. You do not need a cover page. You do not need to indent down on that front page. All I need is the name and the title of your paper right there at the top of your page, because if you indent down a half a page, you will not give me the required 4 pages, and that is the minimum length, 4 pages minimum, not including your reference page. Now here is a simple breakdown, just a recommended guideline of how you might want to structure your paper. Introduction, first page or so. The bulk of your paper is going to be the analysis of your topic using your peer-reviewed academic journals, which I have talked about ad nauseum. So we want to use those as the heart of our sources, and then wrap it up with a relatively short conclusion summarizing what you have learned from your readings, and then your reference page. Only need a minimum of 6 references in the proper format, 4 of which of those need to be peer-reviewed academic journals. So we'll go over the formats of that. Again, you shouldn't need more than 1 page for your reference page, as you'll see here in a minute. Let's go through the guide. This is very important because it provides lots of suggestions and recommendations in order to improve your paper. Bottom line is that you are looking for critical, objective analysis of your topic. Now, we've already talked about following instructions, so let's go to some other things here, such as the quality of your syntax. What you can do to help yourself there primarily is to proofread it. Proofread it, and then proofread it again. Proofread every paragraph. Does it sound right? Does it make sense? Are they complete sentences? Use punctuation effectively. If it needs to have a pause that would make more sense, use that punctuation. This flow in the narrative helps the reader. It's hard to explain how a paper flows, but when you're reading it, you know it. You want to break up your paper in a logical progression. Start at the beginning. Where this is not a Quentin Tarantino movie where we're starting in future and then coming back to the past and then jumping to the present. No, just start at the beginning and tell me what you're analyzing. Bring me up to the present to tell me what's going on based on your analysis. Use paragraphs to break up those passages so that the reader can follow that more clearly. Don't worry about trying to get too wordy. The bottom line is get to the point. Tell me what you've learned. Most importantly, do not cut and paste anything from anywhere. Paraphrase what you have learned in your own words. And once again, proofread it, and then proofread it again, and then proofread it out loud. That's going to help you catch any grammatical mistakes or typos or just clumsy sentences. Now, most importantly, the quality of your information. Are you providing the reader with useful, interesting, unbiased information that you have learned from these credible sources that we've talked about? Dig deeper into the whys, what's fors, how's comes. Don't just talk about stuff. Don't just generalize around the topic. Look for interesting detail, description. Look for social costs versus benefits, unanticipated consequences, that sort of thing. Once again, don't just be generic and broad with assumptions that need substantiation. Give interesting examples that help explain it. Use data, statistics, surveys, polls. Don't just talk about stuff and say, oh yeah, most people think that you should blah, 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 blah. Well, give me a survey, give me a poll that actually demonstrates what people are thinking about that. Avoid those broad generalizations that cannot be proven. Now, as far as sourcing go, most of your paper is going to be from passages that you have learned. So at the end of each passage, then you would simply put an insight text there that says, for example, Jones 2014 at the end of that paragraph. You don't have to do it at the end of every sentence. Just do it at the end of that passage where you are using that source to paraphrase what you've learned. Once again, it's not about spouting your opinions. This is an analytical exercise. Tell me what you've learned. Avoid that confirmation bias that I talked about, the normative rhetoric. The hyperbole, the urge to editorialize, avoid that at all cost. You can use personal or anecdotal experience to help explain this topic that you're dealing with, but that should not be the subject of your paper. That should just be a minor part of it, which helps in the explaining of the topic. What is critical analysis? That's telling me what the author thinks, not what you think. It's okay to be an activist when you get out there and try to change the world, but for now, I just need you to be an analyst. It's about how to understand why and how things are the way they are. As far as sources go, avoid the blogs, avoid these dictionaries and general information forums, these partisan opinionators, these agenda-driven websites. Wikipedia is not a source. It's not a bad place to start looking, but Wikipedia is not the source. You want to go to the original source. Google Scholar is a growing store of academic journals that's worth looking at as well. Use quotes sparingly. You don't want to paper your entire thing there with quotes, because that's lazy writing. You don't want to copy and paste a big old chunk of a quote and slap it down on your paper and fill up half a page. That ain't going to work. If you find a really good, useful quote that might sum things up, for example, at the end of the passage, all I need there after that is one extra thing. Here you would do Jones 2014, comma, and then what page that quote came from. Then what I would do is go to your last reference page. I'd go in alphabetical order, and I would look up Jones and say, that looks like a good source. All right, so we want to be organized and consistent. More about your sources. On the peer-reviewed academic journals, you do not show the web link, because once you get into the website of the databases, that's your internal library. Those articles are published for now until the end of time, do not need a web link. So what you do, last name first of the lead author, and then you can just write out the additional authors if there are any, followed by the year, followed by the title of that article in quotation marks. That brings it out. And then most importantly, the name of that journal in italics, followed by simply the volume, issue, and page numbers. That's all that I need right there. Follow that word for word to the letter, to the comma, and you'll be in good shape, because then we will be clear and consistent. Another one here, of course, these need to be in alphabetical order. Here we've got lead author, last name first, and the other one's written out, the year, the title of the article in quotation marks. Once again, that brings it out, followed by the name of the journal in italics, volume, no issue in this case, followed by the page numbers. So follow that precisely. Here's some examples. In an edited volume, the name of the authors here of that particular article, and then it's in that particular book. So that follow that if you have an edited volume. Books are even more simple. You've got the name of the author, last name first, the year it was published. The title of the book is in italics, because that's what's being published, followed by the place and the publisher. Websites, those can be a little bit trickier, but the same format applies. The author of that article on the website, the date that it was actually published on that website, the title of that article on the website, and the actual website there. So you're following basically the format. The only difference is that I will actually need the link, and the links are mercifully short on these credible news websites, and then what approximately when you accessed it. Again, I'm not going to be quite as picky on that, but follow this format as best as you possibly can, and they are all fairly consistent in the same type of order. If it's published by some sort of organization that does not specifically show an author, then you can just put that organization as the author, followed by the year that it was posted on that website. What is the title of that thing, that report, with that publication? What is it that's being published and then put on that website? Who published it right there, and then followed by the mercifully short web link there. So there's another example. So one more thing I want to look at here. The sample bibliography has been posted, and it can be this simple. Your sites are single spaced with one space in between them. They are in alphabetical order. They are all in the proper format. As you can see, I have numerous sources here all on one page. Very nice and concise and in the proper formats. Here is an example of an edited volume. In fact, that's the same one I showed you earlier. Here are some examples of peer-reviewed academic journal sources right there, right there. Here is an example of a book. Here is another academic journal. Here's another edited volume. Here is another book. So follow this sample bibliography as a go-by, and if your format is consistently in this order, you should be in good shape. It will be easy to follow and make it more understandable and readable. All right, so I put some extraneous information on top of this on these slides here as I've gone along. Primarily what I wanted to do is go over the requirements of the paper, final instructions here. So good luck, and I will see you in class.